आप start कर सकते हैं.
Dubey sir, you can start right now.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's indeed a pleasure to be back again this Sunday before the study circle in Indore. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, okay. A few months ago, Mr. Gogate had asked me if I could give a talk before the Indore study circle on nature and environment, a subject which was very dear to Krishna. Many people may not know this, that Mr. Gogate is responsible to a large extent for getting the Rajghat campus green, and during the last 4 decades, with Gogteji's help, we have been able to plant more than 98,000 trees in about 350 acres. So this is the background of this talk. You know, each year the sun begins its northward journey in January, what we call Uttarayan. Last year, that is 2020, when this journey began, there was a vague buzz about a virus. The equinox is in March, the day when the sun crosses the celestial equator on its northward journey. Like timeless celestial cycles, such events beneath these celebrations draw attention to our connection with the earth and the solar system, and are also times of reflection. The mysteries of creation, the order that connects universe, solar system, planets, earth, moon, and cycles of life, death, and renewal. Last year's spring equinox, on March 19th, brought tidings to a tectonic shift due to the spread of a virus apparently spreading from Wuhan in China. Schools and colleges in India closed before their scheduled vacations, 2 days before the equinox. All travel and business stopped. And all the 7 billion people in the world started marching to the tunes of Corona, locked down and distanced. Europe, India, North and South America, even now, are bearing the biggest loss of human lives. We have a new vocabulary: lockdown, partial lockdown, social distancing. The news constantly informs us of the number of patients and fatalities. Car companies are making ventilators. Steel factories manufacturing oxygen and low-cost ventilators are being made with handheld Raspberry Pi computers. The obvious question that comes to mind is how and why this happened. What is the coronavirus telling us about ourselves as the human species, our dominant economic and technological paradigms, and the earth? Firstly, our lockdown movement has reminded us that the earth is for all species. And when we step back and make streets car free, air pollution is reduced. The second lesson is that this pandemic is not a natural disaster, just as climate extremes are not natural disasters. Emergent disease epidemics like climate change are caused by human activities. So science is informing us that as we invade forest ecosystems, destroy the homes of species, and manipulate plants and animals for profits, we create conditions for new diseases. Over the past 50 years, 300 new pathogens have emerged. It is well documented that around 70% of the human pathogens, including HIV, Ebola, influenza, MERS, and SARS, emerge when forest ecosystems are invaded and viruses jump from animals to humans. to humans. When animals are cramped in factory farms for profit maximization, new diseases like swine flu and bird flu spread. Human greed, with no respect for the rights of other species or even for our fellow human beings, is at the root of this pandemic and future pandemics. A global economy based on the illusions of limitless growth translates into a limitless appetite for the earth's resources, which in turn translates into limitless violation of planetary boundaries, ecosystem boundaries, and species boundaries. The third lesson that the virus is waking us up to is that the health emergency is connected to the emergency of extinction and disappearance of species. It is connected to the climate emergency. When we use poisons as insecticides and herbicides to kill insects and weeds, an extinction crisis is inevitable. When we burn fossil carbon and that the earth fossilized over maybe 600 million years, we violate the planetary boundaries. Climate change is the consequence. Scientific predictions indicate that if we do not stop this man made war against the earth and her species, in 100 years we'll have destroyed the very conditions that allowed humans to evolve and survive. Our extinction will follow that of the 200 other species that are being pushed to extinction every day. We will become one more of the 1 million species threatened with extinction because of human greed, arrogance, and responsibility. All life threatening emergencies of our times are rooted in a mechanistic, militaristic, human centric world view of humans as separate from nature. We feel that we, as masters of the earth, can own, manipulate, and control other species as objects for profits. It is also rooted in an economic model that views ecological and ethical limits as obstructions that must be removed for increasing growth for better lifestyle. This model has no place for the rights of earth, rights of other species, rights of human beings, and the rights of future generations. During the crisis and in the post-lockdown recovery, we need to learn to protect the earth, her climate systems, rights and ecological spaces of diverse species, indigenous people, women, farmers, and workers. To avoid future pandemics, future famines, and a possible scenario of expendable throwaway people, we must move beyond the globalized, industrialized economic system which is driving climate change, pushing species to extinction, and spreading life threatening diseases. Localization leaves space for diverse species, diverse cultures, and diverse local living economies to thrive. We have to consciously reduce our ecological footprint so we leave a just share of resources and ecological space for other species, all humans and future generations. The health emergency and lockdown has shown that when there is a political will, we can deglobalize. Let's make this deglobalization of the economy permanent and localize production in line with Gandhiji's philosophy of Swadeshi, made locally. Krishna talked about protecting the environment more than 100 years ago. He was himself a great observer and lover of nature. And those of us who have read commentaries on living, all three volumes, will recall how keen an observer he was of his surroundings. A Norwegian philosopher, Arne Næss, called him a deep ecologist as early as in 1972. As many of us are aware, the core of Krishna's teaching is on relationship. This relationship is not only between us humans, it is also with nature and other living things. While this needs to be seen at the level of individual responses, we also need to see how human beings have responded as a whole. While we need to look within ourselves, it still involves looking at the external world. आज all Krishnamurti educational centers try and help the students realize that many of today's issues have reached a state of crisis due to the ever growing consumerist lifestyles and choices we made in life. Can the choices be more informed and intelligent? When we are young, we seem to have an inherent interest in the world of nature and love going for nature walks and watching insects and other life forms. We are alert and alive to the little changes around ourselves and notice much and derive great fun from it. But as we grow older, other worldly interests seem to take over. Why is it so? Is it because of our education, which is based on a factory model borrowed from the West and is centered mainly around finding a job and living a comfortable life? I feel that when an individual is touched by something living outside of himself, then he becomes sensitive towards it and acts with care. Almost all the people I have met who work with environmental issues have started with a strong feeling for some aspect or the other of nature, like maybe bird watching, caring for plants or animals, etc. In this enormously complex world where most of our actions are limited, it is now clearer, especially in the realm of environment. Here is a rich opportunity to watch ourselves and the need for self aggrandizement. Through all this, a student or a person can still be taught to act meaningfully, to do simple things because he or she understands the rightness of the action, like not to litter, to segregate garbage, to conserve water and other resources. Even as this happens, a student or a person can watch for signs of self righteousness and self projection. There is an opportunity to be an individual here, to do the right thing as a good human being. I would like to quote Krishna here about nature, where he says, what is nature? There is a great deal of talk about an endeavor to protect nature, the animals, the birds, the whales and dolphins, to clean the polluted rivers, the lakes, the green fields, and so on. Nature is not put together by thought, as religion is, as belief is. Nature is the tiger, the extraordinary animal with its energy, its great sense of power. Nature is the solitary tree in the field, the meadows, and the groves. It is that squirrel shyly hiding behind a bough. Nature is the ant and the bee and all the living things of the earth. Nature is the river, not a particular river, whether it is Ganges, the Thames, or the Mississippi. Nature is all those mountains, snow clad, with dark blue valleys and ranges of hills meeting the seas. The universe is part of this world. One must have a feeling for all this, not destroy it, not kill for one's pleasure, not kill animals for food. We do kill the vegetables that we eat, but one must draw the line somewhere. If you do not eat vegetables, then how will you live? So one must intelligently discern. Nature is part of our life. We are not separate from it. We grew out of the seed, the earth, and we are part of all that. But we are rapidly losing the sense that we are very much a part of it like the others. Can you have a feeling for a tree? Look at it, see the beauty of it, listen to the sound it makes, be sensitive to the little plant, to the little weed, to the creeper that is growing up the wall, to the light on the leaves and the many shadows. You must be aware of all this and have that sense of communion with nature around you. You may live in a town, but you do have trees here and there. The next door garden may be ill kept, crowded with weeds, but look at the flower in it and feel that you are part of all that, part of all living things. If you hurt nature, you are hurting yourself. The educator should talk about all these things, not just verbally. He must feel the word of nature and the word of man. They are interrelated. Man cannot escape from that. When he destroys nature, he is destroying himself. When he kills another, he is killing himself. The enemy is not the other, but you. To live in such harmony with nature, with the word, naturally brings about a different word. Unquote. But the way we are destroying the natural environment in every way possible, and the way we have become slaves to the entertainment industry and to the consumerism, all this leads us to ask, why are we doing it? And also, is there a different approach to living about which Krishna talked about in all his discourses? Excuse me. What is it that has led us to this extraordinary complexity in the society that has brought us to the brink of utter disaster? More than anything else, it is the climate change which is threatening us today. We can see its effect, especially in the spread of the COVID 19. I feel that there is a strong need for an environmental debate by asking fundamental questions about who we are and what human progress means, rather than searching merely for technological fixes. Throughout Krishnamurti's writings, we find an ancient and powerful binding sense of the earth's beauty, her abundance, and her mystery. To look at nature through philosophical exploration, Krishna's writing is to perceive natural phenomena. The extraordinary blue of the sea, the owl that hoots on the hill, the shadows of leaves, and the patterns of clouds in their vital singularity. At a deeper level, Krishna believed that human nature held out the immediate and perillian possibility of restoring its relationship with nature. In the last relation between modern humans and nature, Krishna in fact saw the opportunity for the reawakening of man. And the opportunity is summed up in a sentence where he says, an interval of time separates man from nature. That makes the right relationship with nature. A seemingly simple act of stepping outside our psychological framework, dominated as these are by a pursuit of short term goals, resulting in an exploited earth losing its ability to support life systems. This seemingly easy sentence holds out the promise of transforming psychological time, which arises from the great storehouse of personal memories, societal norms, and biological instincts that constitutes the human psyche. Krishna sought to reconfigure moral discourse about nature by connecting the transformative power of perception to the inner life of the mind. He says, to look or to listen is one of the most difficult things in life. He further says, it is difficult because if your eyes are blinded with your worries, you cannot see the beauty of the sunset. And so most of us have lost touch with nature. I'll take a minute here and uh, present you some of the quotes from Krishna which I especially liked. So please bear with me. Okay, here we are. So can you see this?
Yes, sir. We can see it and read as well.
Okay, so I'll just read it. What is your relationship with nature? Nature being the rivers, the trees, the swift flying birds, the fish in the water, the minerals under the earth, the waterfalls, and shallow pools. What is your relationship to them? Most of us are not aware of that relationship. We never look at a tree. If we do, it is with a view to using that tree, either to sit in its shade or to cut it down for lumber. We treat the earth and its products in the same way. There's no love for earth, only usage of earth. Sensitivity comes only when this utilitarian outlook is put aside. It does not mean that you cannot use the earth, but you must use the earth as it is meant to be used. This is from a talk Krishnaji gave in Pune, 17th October 1948. I bring another. Uh, can you have a feeling for a tree? Look at it, see the beauty of it, listen to the sound it makes, be sensitive to the little plant, to the little weed, to the creeper that is growing up to the wall, to the light on the leaves and the many shadows. You must be aware of all this and have that sense of communion with nature around you. If you hurt nature, you are hurting yourself. If you lose touch with nature, you lose touch with humanity. If there is no relationship with nature, then you become a killer either for gain, for a sport, for good, for food, or for knowledge. I want to quote a little poem from Krishnaji's poems. It's known as the Song of Life. Love not the shapely branch, nor place its image alone in thy heart. It dieth away. Love the whole tree, then thou shalt love the shapely branch, the tender and the withered leaf, the shy bud and the full blown flower, the falling petal and the dancing height, the splendid shadow of full love. Ah, love life in its fullness, it knoweth no decay. The last one that I'm going to read out now. This is taken from a talk Krishnaji gave in Bombay on 24th January 1981. We are going to talk together about the relationship between a human being and nature, which is the relationship between yourself and the environment. The environment is not only the city or town or the village you live in, but also the environment of nature. If you have no relationship with nature, you have no relationship with man. Please, it is very important to understand this because beauty, if one may talk about it, is not merely in the physical form, but beauty in essence is that quality of sensitivity, the quality of observation of nature. So I'll stop here and come back to my theme again. And then in the end, I want to share with you a 4 minute audio clip of Krishnaji, which is interesting and it's on nature. I hope you like it. So I want to come back and ask some basic questions. And I want all of us to be with it, not to try and find a quick response, but to stay with it. What does it mean to love the earth and care for it? How does one develop the feeling of love and care? And if one really has love for earth, will not this love of earth bring about some frugality in our way of living? Let's, for example, talk about our relation with money and earning. We are often asked how much we earn. How much should we earn? Why has this become such an important question? The mood that has been created in society is that we should always earn more and consume more and more. More is better. More is equated with better. Why should one earn more and consume more and more? Perhaps we are not reflecting enough on the effects of this philosophy and what it is doing to our life. This philosophy has led us to destroy our relationship with nature and see where we have reached. By destroying the forest ecosystem, We have brought in more and more viruses than human beings. Our consumerist approach to life has led us to this stage. My second question is, why don't we want to live why don't we want to live a simple life? What is simplicity? What does it mean to be simple, to be innocent, to be unwounded, to be unhurt? Having gone through sorrow and yet not holding on to sorrow, having gone through hurt and yet not holding on to that hurt, not holding any anger in oneself. These are things that have to be gone into our education or even at our home. The beauty of simplicity has to be experienced from childhood. What does it all mean? The simplicity in human beings, in a teacher, in a parent, simplicity in a student. It should be talked about at home. Generally, these things are not talked about anywhere, neither in our homes or in our education. My next point is, what is the art of listening to somebody? Listening to somebody completely without any sense of measurement, evaluation, or assessment. Unfortunately, listening happens in us only with a sense of working out a reply or looking for an answer. That is not listening. Then what is listening? I think it is a skill which one can develop by careful understanding and reflection. One must have sensitivity, compassion, and love in order to see and listen. How very important it is in a relationship. What does it mean to work together, to think together? The issue of cooperation. The model that we have is that we think together on something of national importance, maybe like climate change or some sort of common problems like problems of war or dealing with a pandemic. It is always something outside, but in all these models, there is always something away from us. Is there such a thing as actually being together? Can we be together first and then think so that thinking together may come afterwards? What does relating to someone actually mean? Why cannot we become the critic of the society rather than blindly follow it? We should be a moral critic, being able to point out what is wrong with the society and its values. We must discover new values and not only new knowledge, new information, and new technique. How do we find true value of something unless we go deeply into everything and find its intrinsic value, its worth? Right from ancient times, learned people were never meant to follow the society. In the process of questioning society, we place seeds in our mind and also in our new generation. One must question everything, not with the not with indolence, insolence, but as a source of inquiry to find out, to know. Next question that I want to ask you, why are we living a fragmented life? We have become used to the idea that one has to live a divided life. We have one kind of life in our home, another in our workplace, and third kind when we are with friends. It is an extremely dangerous trend to have different values to suit different circumstances. I think this is a major problem that we are facing in our society today, to have different values to suit different circumstances. We have seen people who are very compassionate and loving with friends, but are very tyrannical boss or parents. This means we are not individuals. Individual means something that cannot be divided. So these questions are extremely important in our life and also in the education. And unfortunately, they have been left out of the educational curriculum because we are so completely bogged down by having to convey the information, technology, knowledge, and a skill, etc. I'm not against development of skills and knowledge, but should education be restricted to only this? The points I just mentioned are vital because these are underpinning of peace in our life or underpinning of a sense of harmony in the world. I hope these things somehow take root in our education and also in our daily life. I would like to read a passage which I really like uh, about Krishnaji. You know, a teacher from Rishi Valley School asked Krishnaji, what is the work of man? What are we actually here for? It's a beautiful question if you think about it. What are we actually here for? I'll read out what Krishnaji replied in parts. Thus, he says, what do you think it is? Is it to study, pass examinations, get a good job and do it for the rest of your life? Is it to go to the temple, join groups, launch various reforms? Is a man's work to kill animals for his own food? Is it man's work to build a bridge for the train to cross, to dig wells in dry land, to find oil, to climb mountains, to conquer the earth and the air, to write poems, to paint, to love, to hate? Is all this the work of man? Building civilizations that come toppling down in a few centuries, bringing about wars, creating God in one's own image, killing people in the name of religion or the state, talking of peace and brotherhood while usurping power and being ruthless to others. This is what man is doing all around you, is it not? And this is the true work of man. You can see this all leads to destruction and misery, to chaos and despair. Great luxuries exist side by side with extreme poverty, disease and starvation, with refrigerators and jet planes. All this is the work of man. And when you see it, don't you ask yourself, is that all? Is there not something else which is the true work of man? If you can find out what is the true work of man, then jet planes, washing machines, bridges, hostels all have an entirely different meaning. But without finding out what is the true work of man, merely to indulge in reforms, in reshaping that what man has already done will lead nowhere. So, what is the true work of man? Surely the true work of man is to discover the truth, God. It is to love and not to be caught in his own self enclosing activities. In the very discovery of what is true, there is love. And that love in man's relationship with man will create a different civilization, a new world. Now I'll stop here. I'll share a small audio clip for about 4 minutes. After that, I will request Dr. Gajanan Rao and Harshji to make observations because I think we value their observations. So I'll just share a screen with a small audio. Can you hear it?
Most people
You can hear it, sir?
have lost touch with
Clear.
nature. Or if you live in a place like this, with high mountains, with snow, glaciers, and marvelous shaped hills, they get used to it. Once I was walking in California in the high mountains. I was looking at the sunset. And I was standing very still. And a horse came up behind me with a man on it. And he looked at me and he said, "Why do you stand there so still? What's wrong with you?" So Most of people, I feel, since they have lost their sensitivity to nature, to all the extraordinary beauty of the earth, somehow they seem to lose their relationship with man. I don't think you can have deep, profound relationship with human beings unless you have also a great feeling for nature, the mountains, the rivers, the various animals. And you can't have this appreciation, the feeling for beauty, for nature, if you kill animals. Then you become rather coarse and ugly. As you walk down one of these European lanes along a valley with mountains all around you, and see the snow-capped mountains and the running rivers, do you ask yourself ever, what's your relationship to them all, to the birds, to the animals? Or you have no time at all, but just pass through them and say how beautiful and go on. If you do ask what your relationship is, and if you have no relationship to that tree or to that bird, then what kind of relationship can you have with human beings? We all seem to think, at least most people do, that we are separate individuals, feeling exclusive and thinking that being individuals, we are free. We are really not actually individuals at all, because each human being has the same problems, the same sorrows, the same fears, the same anxieties and griefs and hurts and all that. Every human being goes through this. And so psychologically, inwardly, there is no really an individual. We are, what is the common factor of every human being? When one realizes that, not verbally or intellectually, deeply, then the petty, narrow individual existence disappears.
So I'm finished now. May I request Dr. Gajanan Rao first to make some observation, followed by Harshad.
Thank you, Dubey.
Sir, unmute yourself.
Yes, sir. Dubeyji, namaskar once again. Can you all hear me?
Yes, sir, you can.
Yeah. Now, the mountain of you has muted the most of me, although I'm unmuted. I'm nobody, but yet I don't know why. Can I say this, Dubeyji? I wish to congratulate you. It's not being formal. For a great speech covering everything from the sun down to the earth. Nothing left. Everything put it in its place. It was a great academic lecture. It's a great talk on art, aesthetics, love, friendship, relationship, Krishnaji's tropical environment and our relationship with nature and all. tremendous it was. I really have very little to say, Dubey. You surprised me even Benares when you became the director, what do you call that? Not the director, what's the name there? Rector? All right. We were there for a gathering and invited us an introductory speech. I said, it's not the number of years that you've been associated with Krishnaji counts. It doesn't matter at all if you knew him personally or not. Of course, his presence mattered. But a sensitive person, for a sensitive person, a word is enough. Something of a nature of a dialogue you listen to is enough. And the river that he initiated, Krishnaji, of knowledge and not to be caught in knowledge, has been close to us. You know, that's a great lesson he gave. So much knowledge. Yes, we are incomplete because there's always something more to know. I don't think I have much to say except to feel very nice about today's speech. I listened to every word of your division. And it is so true that in spite of all that is hitting us around as nature, animals, trees, flowers, somewhere man's insensitivity has been increasing. Otherwise, can you have a world like you have been witnessing for a few days, leave alone the coronavirus, which seems to be very intelligent, escaping all our ways to block it. We don't know a real cure. One drug we couldn't find, this human mind, to annihilate it. So that remdesivir and more things. We are not able to do anything about it. And then, what would you talk about insensitivity that we're literally witnessing on the screen, on the TV and papers of the Afghan peoples suffering? My God, I cannot describe this cruelty, this indifference to people. So, there's absolute lack of love. There seems to be absolute lack of love in human being. We have not learnt anything at all. We have grown hugely in academics, science, and so on. But we haven't looked at things that are destroying the earth. I don't know. I haven't much to say today, but I have listened to you completely. But having listened to Krishnaji, some little things come to memory when he sits on his days in Rishi Valley and talks to children, as you said. He'll see the girl by his side and say, look at that flower. He literally taught you how to look at nature, how to bring it very near to you. Look at the flower, what's the color? What is the petal? What's the leaf? Did you look at that? Did you look at this? His observation was terrific. It went on describing what he saw from near thing to the last. A huge tree of the Rishi Valley had probably held the banyan tree. On it was a small cycle tilted. I really was wondering what's the eyesight at 80 years. Tremendous. We are all very, very lucky to have been contemporaries of him. And yet the world hasn't listened to him. I'm sorry. The schools are become a tool now. Schools have become a tool now to bring children to them a sense of all this. We are not doing it effectively, I feel. I wish Dubey you shouldn't have left the school at all. At least you're with the foundation as a trustee. I'm very happy. Schools are really places where children should be not taught directly, but the way teachers behave, having been with Krishnaji, reading, convey to them non-verbally all that is required. Tools you require, not only change yourself, but to bring about a change in the world. Otherwise, the world will become a disastrous place to live in. I said, it will finish up. We'll end up very soon, sooner than God had intended us to be. Well, so I would like Harsh to say something. In between, I may chip up if I want to say something more. I'm very happy to have listened to you today, and there's nothing more to add, actually.
Thank you, sir.
Let us. Yes.
Now.
Okay, well, can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
I think, as Sushilji said to me, this is a subject which is very dear to my heart. So if you don't mind, I will say quite a bit about it. First, let me say I'm completely in sympathy with everything that Dubeji said. It expresses how I feel, and it, as Gajanan said, it covers the whole field. But if you don't mind, I will expand a bit on it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. It's first, let me say, yes, at Brockwood, we do teach the students very much. And I'll tell you a little story which illustrates some of the things that Dubeji was saying. I took a group of students, along with Scott Forbes and a couple of other staff members, and into Ladakh, into deep mountains, places where nobody goes to, untouched by human beings. For 2 weeks we were away, and it's remarkable because you are literally there above. It feels like there is a layer of thought, and you are above that layer of thought. You're above the clouds because you're completely removed and completely self-reliant. If you had an accident, it would be a week before anybody could get to the nearest place where there was a radio that they could send a helicopter to pull you out. So you are completely alone and by yourself. And you can, and of course, it's beautiful. You really see the beauty of the mountains. And you understand why they call the Himalayas the abode of the gods. So we were with the students. We wanted students to experience nature untouched by man. And we'd taken them there. And we would often completely entranced, beautiful what we saw. And we would stop and look. And one of the students, he was intent in getting to the end. He says, come on, get on, let's keep moving. We've got to get there. And we went, well, we would stay. I didn't take photographs because I didn't even want to take photos. Some people did. So we were always in conflict with him because he wanted us to keep moving. Couldn't understand why we. When we got back, we showed these photographs to the school. This is where we've been. This student who had been so keen in getting to our destination, he looked at the photographs and he said, you know, with wonder, he said, that was a really beautiful place we were in. And I said to him, and yes, you missed it. You missed the beauty. And I think this is what we do because we are so intent in getting where we are, in whatever way, that we miss the beauty. We miss the beauty and the order and the loveliness of the world that is around us. And when we miss it, when we don't see it, then obviously we don't know how to care for it. So But I mean, one thing that strikes me right now is that this is an amazing time in the history of mankind. Can you imagine? Every human being on earth, virtually every human being on earth, is thinking about coronavirus. It's the world is mind is intent on one thing that has never happened in the history of mankind. I mean, I'm laughing about it because it's so remarkable, but it's a sad thing happening. But it's worth noting that we are in everybody and is recognizing that no matter how rich or poor or clever or stupid you may be, you're in exactly the same relationship to the coronavirus. It can get you, and you have to be careful, and you have to care about it. You have to see what can be done, that you are, all of you, really on the same ground. And another, an important lesson for us at the moment. So, but to return to the environment, I think most of what Dubey had to say is about nature. And I think one of the things that we these days see as the environment is essentially nature. Environmentalists are talking about protecting nature, which is all very good. And once again, I say this, I'm completely in sympathy with that, and I have tried in my own way to do what I can. But I think Krishnamurti had a wider view of the environment. Not only Krishnaji, it just so happened, just yesterday, I was reading a review of a book about Vedic ecology. And it tells me that in the Vedas too, there was this wider sense of what the environment is. Now, Krishnaji's view was essentially that the environment, that is the meaning of the word environment, everything around us, the setting that we are in, that is the environment. And his basic approach to it was, and which is, if you think about it, it's fairly obvious that we are created by the environment and we create the environment in return. So that is an important thing to recognize. It's not something separate from us in that sense. We are in this relationship with the environment that it creates us and we create it. That's backwards and forwards movement is our relationship with the environment. And in the environment, he did not just include trees and forests and the waters, the lakes and the mountains, but also our relationships, the political, social, economic situation, environment in which we find it. If you want, you can look in collected works. One of the earliest things that he spoke in 1934 in Ojai, in his public talks in Ojai, almost all the public talks were about the environment. And where he says very clearly this sense of the environment, that firstly, the environment is this widest thing because all those things together work to create what we call even the physical environment or the natural environment. The reason for that is that you say there is the Wuhan virus, but what contributed to its spread was all the political situations, miscommunications, lack of transparency, lack of reacting, wrong political all that was the complete environment which made it as dangerous as it is. And if we think of climate change, the same thing applies there. It isn't just that we are producing a lot of greenhouse gases, and these gases are going to produce global warming. It is that we are not, as a group of human beings, once we see this, firstly, we don't even want to see it. We want to deny it, or many people do. And then we lack the political will. We lack the sense of urgency. We lack all of that. So all that is part of what is creating the environment. And Krishnaji was very clear about this. He was very clear that that whole thing is the environment. The whole relationship between us and what is around us. And it involves this. And the other thing that is very clear about is that we asked us the question, why are we in conflict with the environment? Because that is what it is. We are in conflict. We are destroying it. We don't understand it. We don't want to. Some of us want to protect it. Others want to use it. Why shouldn't we use it? We are human beings. We have our needs. Why shouldn't we do what we want with? So we are in conflict with the environment. And there is conflict there. And unless we resolve this conflict that we are engaged in, man against nature, we are not going to find a resolution of it. And I've seen this in my own experience. I've been an activist in my life, demonstrating against certain things that are happening, destruction of forests, building of dams, and so on. And I think there is a point to it. I think one can take political action, one can join a group, one can push for something, which is most people's reaction when they try and do something about the environment. But that essentially is also conflict. It's one group against another group. And often it does lead to actual conflict. The groups actually collide and they even fight each other. You see this happening all the time. So maybe it's necessary and maybe it can achieve something for some issue locally, like pollution, the river with chemicals from a factory, or maybe the building of a dam, or on one particular aspect of something at one time, it might achieve something. And it might even be necessary at that time. But it will not come to a situation where we have stopped our conflict with environment, and where we actually, this is one of the reasons I turned to Krishnamurti, because as Dubey said, we need to cooperate about climate change. And it's pretty clear, if you look at what's happening, that we are not being able to communicate about climate change when we desperately need to. So why aren't we? Why are we as human beings unable to cooperate about things that should be fairly obvious? Which, of course, certainly led me to recognize that it is what is happening within ourselves. It is the conflicts, and then, of course, the recognition of the part that the self has to play in all of this, which is, of course, if you look at what Krishnaji has to say about the environment, you will see that that is eventually what he comes to too. He is not suggesting that we should engage in political action, we should join groups, that we should. People may do that. It's not, it's like It's like if you're ill, you might have to take medicine, but that's not the way to health. How to be healthy is an entirely different thing. So he eventually, that is what he would bring us to, that we are, unless we learn to end this conflict, which means looking at understanding the fact that we are created by the environment and that we are creating the environment. And it's not, it's seamless. We are part of it. We are part of nature. It's not outside us. We are, and that is, unless we see that, we will always be at war with it. And unless we see the role of thought in all of this. Incidentally, I thought it might interest this particular group. I never would read in the scriptures or anything like that, but it just so happened that I was looking at this, that the Vedas talk about the collision between Shruti, which is the essence, and Smriti, which the article I was reading talked about obsolete, dead things. And that because of this collision between Shruti and Smriti, but I know enough to know that Smriti also means memory. So it's a collision between what is and thought that is to blame for all of this. Anyway, I think that's enough.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I think Harshad Bhai wants to say something. Yes, sir.
Yes.
And then
Are
go.
you able? Are you? Oh, okay. Yeah. Are you able to hear my voice?
Yes, yes,
Yes.
yes.
Okay. This reminds me of my first visit to Brookwood Park in 1979, and I had gone to meet Mr. Narayan and Krishnaji about joining Rishi Valley School. So, since it was my first visit, I did not know how to go to Brookwood. I went roundabout way and I had to walk a lot. And then I had lunch with Mr. Narayan. And then I was feeling very sleepy and tired. So I told Mr. Narayan that I will go to my room and take rest. And Mr. Narayan said, no, let's just go for a short walk. And Mr. Narayan took me to the grove, a beautiful grove. There are very beautiful redwood trees. And when we entered the grove, all my tiredness was gone.
Yeah.
And I looked at the tree and it looked so marvelous, so beautiful, as if light was radiating from it. And I asked Mr. Narayan how much money the foundation paid to get this land and building and everything. And he said 40,000 pounds. And I said, this tree itself looks like 40,000 pounds to me. It's so beautiful. And there are beautiful flowers. And then Mr. Narayan said, look who is there. And when I looked, Krishnaji was there in the grove. And I felt as if his presence, though I did not know, his presence affected me and all my tiredness was gone. So walking in nature, I always have enjoyed walking in nature, even before I came to Krishnamurti teachings. But after coming to Krishnamurti teachings and then looking inside, looking at the thoughts and feelings arising, and there are some changes happening within the brain, and then looking at nature, it was quite different. and everything looks so fresh, so beautiful. And it has been like that for last 45 years, since 1973, when I came to Krishnamurti. So we have a beautiful Victoria Park here in Bhavnagar, in my hometown, 5,000 acres of forest. And it's wonderful to look at the birds and the trees and everything. And I am reading a book called The Hidden Life of Trees. And it says that even trees have feelings and they communicate with each other, they help each other. They even feel loneliness if there is only one tree and not other trees around. So nature is very, very sensitive, and human beings are also sensitive. But I think that sensitivity is lost as we go through too much studying in schools and college, too much knowledge of the external world. And it happened to me also that when I was very young, I used to look at the flowers, rose flower, and the dewdrop on it, and the sunlight falling on it, and everything looked so marvelous. But then I went to school and college and studied engineering, went to America, many, many problems. Then that sense of looking fresh without thinking, without that sense of me, it was lost. And children, they look at everything beautiful, but we lose that sense of beauty. But I got that beauty back after coming into touch with Krishnamurti's teachings and looking inside at the source from where everything is arising. So I feel that the source of Krishnamurti's teachings is partly walking alone in nature, then having a silent mind and having a sensitivity. And Krishnaji was very lucky in being exposed to many, many beautiful places and having met so many people. He was learning throughout his life, and the, there is no end to learning. So, okay, I have said enough. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Harshad bhai. Gogate ji wants to say something. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
One of famous quotation of Krishnamurti is leave the teachings and care for the land. In Krishnamurti at Raighat, there is one passage in which Krishnamurti says, when there is no forest around Varanasi, if one goes in the forest and if a small twig falls, he becomes becomes attentive, and that is how they have explained the importance of going in, moving in the forest, roaming in the forest. At Varanasi, Dubey has done very good things by planting many trees, especially 300. Recently, within last 5 years, he has planted 300 fruit trees of different species, and on the Ganga front land, he has planted more than 2,000 trees of Arjun and other species, and that has made the area very beautiful. Now it is like that Rajghat school, Bajan school and college is in the forest, and it looks very nice. Dubey, you have done very good work. I am thankful to you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Harsh, you want
Tankha sir wanted.
Yes, yes, Harsh.
Tankha sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I thought I would do something very unusual. I want to quote a popular song, a pop song, which was the lyrics of it. Because it's what Dubey was saying, and Gajanan was saying about love. It's when I heard this song, I thought, is this person talking about Krishnamurti? But it became world #1 hit back in 1940 or 1950. So here are the lyrics. There was a boy, a very strange, enchanted boy. They say he wandered very far, over land and sea. A little shy and sad of eye, but very wise was he. And then one day, a magic day, he passed my way. And while we spoke of many things, fools and kings, this he said to me, the greatest thing you'll ever learn is just to love and be loved in return.
Very well said, sir. Very well. Very nice. I think Durgaji wants to say something, and then Mr. Pradeep Verma. Durgaji, please.
Good morning, sir. Am I audible or not?
Yes, you are. Yes.
Yes, sir. It's a very intense talk and very valid. And for the past 2.5 years or so, we all became the victims of it, of this coronavirus. You know, it affected our lives so much. Maybe not so much for the senior citizens like us, but those, young people with the young children, school-going kids, and people who are working in offices, they must have got so terribly affected by this. But one good thing about this coronavirus, sir, I think last year, initially when the whole world was struggling with this, with the lockdown and all, nature was taking a very good breather, sir. I don't know. In a lot of televisions and all, they flashed a lot of pictures. All the wild animals coming onto the airports, and because everything was so empty. So, in fact, I used to feel very happy. It's a good lesson for humanity. And nature at least is taking, good breather. It's a good lesson for us, And it's so good to hear Mr. Gogate's voice today, because all your lived, spent time with Krishnaji, and he speaks so rarely. So, and his contribution to listen to that is so good. Namaskar, sir. Namaskar. And in fact, I wonder, sir, you people need to pen down your, memoirs and all. Even Tankha, Harshad is, that experience with the, taking the kids to the Ladakh and all those things. I think even Mr. Rao, sir, you need to pen down your memoirs or something like that, because we couldn't spend time with Krishnaji, and you all must be having plenty of memories and all. So I think, in fact, in retrospect, I wonder, all these Westerners and all, they come out with so many books and books. I don't know why we people don't come out with them, In fact, this thought was there in my mind, all of you should pen down your experiences, your, all the lessons learned and the beautiful memories you had with the Krishnaji and all, the first-hand lessons, because it's nice to hear all those, when I attend these sessions and all. So this is a very nice and very relevant topic, sir. And and I don't know how far the world is going to struggle with this corona, the nature and all that. And and you asked very intense questions also in the answer. I don't know. I think each one has to reflect and ponder on them, and we need to come out with those answers. Maybe each question can be discussed independently and independently in each session also. So maybe that's how, because too many questions you asked are very deep questions. Yeah, so I just wanted to communicate that, and it's a very valid topic and a very relevant topic, sir. That's all I have to say. Thank you so much. Okay.
Thank you, Durgaji. We'll hear Pradeep ji and then Shakti ji. Pradeep ji, please.
Thank you, Dubey ji. I heard all the speakers, and Dubey ji a number of questions were asked. So the very fact that these remain a question today, why we are separated from nature, starting from Descartes' philosophy of West. But whatever it is, but these questions are still relevant. And they are, because why they are still questions, because they are related to the sensitivity which all talked about, which is related to awareness and love, and related to seeing and listening, is very natural in people, most of them. So this sensitivity, to me, this cannot be cultivated or take as an education, agenda for education. So it's quite a natural thing in people. And partly it depends on the bringing up, how much you have been left yourself, how much freedom you have enjoyed in your growing years. So I would like to share two small poems, if you allow me. Please, thank you. So one is on urbanization and concretization. All my roses big and small, turned away their lovely faces from huge and tall the concrete wall. All my roses, big and small, turned away their lovely faces from huge and tall the concrete wall. Pink complained of breathing air, void trouble in sunny prayer. Yellow spoke urban greed, white on peace the basic need. Green suffered the most of all. Green suffered the most of all, oh, unmoved the cement wall. This was one. Sprout. Life is spiritual and can be seen best. Life is spiritual and can be seen best in a sprout when the spiritual is out. Another small 4 or 6 lines. I don't know whether they can be called poem, but somehow this came out of me. Dress. They kill fishes and chicken and remove the lovely pattern covering the soft bodies. They kill fishes and chicken and remove the lovely pattern covering the soft bodies. They call it cleaning, they call it dressed before they eat the delicate meat. So these are 3 small things I wanted to share with you. So that everything depends on the sensitivity one has. If sensitivity is there, automatically you are aware of many more things than your little self. Automatically, this happens automatically. Once you go out in the morning for a walk, so many things invite you. They call you from where? Because of the sensitivity you have. You are connected to the whole world. So automatically, this is awareness is quite, again, it's a natural thing. Nobody can force, as Harshji was talking about, that one student who was asking to move and move and move. So this is natural to a large extent. And that's why it has remained a question. So we have to see ourselves how sensitive we are. Can we see? And seeing and listening is directly related to sensitivity and the space you have for so-called others. Thank you, my Dubeji.
Thank you. Thank you, Pradeep ji, for lovely poems. Thank you. Shakti ji, please unmute yourself. Yes.
Yes.
We can't hear you, Shakti. I think maybe you can put off the video and then try.
Now,
No, your voice is not clear, Shakti ji. It's breaking.
Shakti ji, you can write. You can write so that we others can see whatever you wanted to.
yes.
Kamlesh ji has made a comment. Can Dubey ji clarify on communion with nature? Sir Harshji has answered this question very aptly, and he said, if you can really see that nature is not different from you, you're part of it, then you develop that sensitivity. And that is what communion means. You know, you start communicating with everything around you.
Thanks, Dubey.
Thank you. Shakti, I'm sorry we can't hear you.
He is writing.
Okay. Okay. So Jain Sahab, I think we have come to the end of the talk now. And
Definitely, but you have to say declare the next topic for the Sunday. Speaker Gajanan Rao is very much there and KK Krishnamurti. So please
You've
declare.
already announced that. So next Sunday, we'll have Dr. Gajanan Rao and Mr. K. Krishnamurti talking about self-knowledge and our wrong notions of it. So it will be next Sunday, 11 o'clock. And you're all welcome to join us once again. Till then, we say goodbye. Thank you. Namaste. Namaste, everybody.
Thank you, Dubey. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Shakti ji aa rahe?
Shakti ji, are you coming? Shakti ji.
शक्ति जी कुछ लिख रहे थे,
वही तो
भेज दें तो उनको कुछ मतलब दिख जाएगा कमेंट पे.
Would you please communicate, Shakti ji? Would you please communicate that what you have written?
Yeah. You know, sir, I just wanted to ask if is thought not nature? Is thought not part of nature? Just that. Thank you.
Dubey ji, if you are in communion, you can understand what he said. That is the only possibility.
Dubey ji is not here, sir. Dubey ji is not here. Dubey ji has left the meeting. So we will take that question in the next. May I close it?
Yeah, bilkul. You should close it.
Take the question in the next meeting.
Close it, please. Thank you, Shakti ji. Thank you very much. Thanks to everybody.